The Las Vegas Raiders have been relatively quiet during this free agency period. While they've made some moves, such as signing a few of their own players and extending Max Crosby, they haven't been heavy spenders. Instead, they've focused on signing players like a safety, linebacker, and guard. Overall, their approach has been more measured, and I think it's been a smart strategy. One of their best moves recently was signing veteran running back Raheem Mostert. While Mostert is 33 years old, a fairly advanced age for a running back, he brings a lot of potential. Early in his career, he was mostly a special teams player with limited carries. However, he had a breakout year with the San Francisco 49ers and continued his success with the Miami Dolphins. In 2023, Mostert scored 21 total touchdowns, which is impressive, especially for a running back his age. While his role decreased in 2024, he still remains a solid player. The Raiders signed Mostert to a very affordable contract worth just $2.1 million, which is an excellent deal for the team. This move highlights General Manager Dave Ziegler's approach of bringing in players that offer value without breaking the bank. Mostert is expected to be part of a running back rotation rather than the team's sole option. With a mix of young players already under contract, including rookies, Mostert will provide experience and leadership as a veteran in the room. The Raiders could still draft a running back, and I expect them to add one, if not two, to the roster. Mostert is likely to be the number 2 running back, with a rookie potentially competing for the top spot. The team will likely lean on a zone-based running scheme, and Mostert is a good fit for this system. His success in the outside zone running schemes used by the 49ers and Dolphins is a testament to his fit within this type of offense. The difference between outside zone and inside zone running is significant. The offensive line plays a different role, and the running back's angles and reads change. Outside zone allows running backs like Mostert to use their speed and explosiveness, which is an advantage for him. What I like about Mostert's contract is that it's low risk, but with high upside. He's not expected to carry the team with 1,500 yards, but he can still be effective with 5 to 7 touches per game. Those touches could easily lead to 50 yards or more on any given play, due to his explosive ability. While Mostert may be entering the decline phase of his career, he can still contribute meaningfully and help mentor younger running backs like Dylan L. and others who are still developing. Additionally, if the Raiders do choose to draft a running back, this year's draft class offers a lot of depth. There are 15 strong running backs available, with the top few like Nick Chubb, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley standing out as true feature backs. But there are also plenty of productive backup options that could complement Mostert's role and help the Raiders build a deep and versatile backfield. Looking at the Raiders' approach to the running back position, it seems likely they'll draft one in the upcoming draft. Many fans have their eyes on Ashton Genty, and while he's a talented prospect, it's important for the Raiders to be realistic about where they're picking. The team has the 37th pick in the second round and the 68th pick in the third round. This gives them a good opportunity to grab a solid running back without having to reach too high. If the Raiders take a running back in the second round, they'll likely land a really strong player. There are several great options available, such as RJ Harvey, who could be a possibility in the second or third round, or Caleb Johnson, who might also be available in the third. These players are more likely to contribute immediately compared to later round picks. While some may argue for taking Genty at pick 6, it's important to consider the long-term value of a running back. Running backs typically have shorter careers compared to other positions, so selecting one with a top 6 pick can be a risky move. You could get a solid 5 to 8 years from a great running back, but a player like a right tackle can give you 15 years of service if he's good enough. That's why it's critical for the Raiders to weigh the overall impact of taking a running back early. Of course, if the top players at other positions, like wide receiver, offensive tackle, cornerback, or defensive end, are already off the board, and the Raiders feel like running back is the best remaining option, then taking a running back could make sense. This draft class is unique in that there's a lot of high-end talent at the top, but a lot of players in the middle who could be taken later and still make a good impact. Because of this, the second and third round picks will be incredibly valuable for the Raiders. With those picks, the team could potentially grab 3 starting caliber players, such as a running back, guard, tackle, defensive end, or wide receiver. The Raiders have a real chance to build a solid foundation through these early selections. Overall, I like the Raiders' low-risk, high-upside approach with the signing of Raheem Mostert. He fits well within the system they plan to run and should help improve the running back room. Mostert's experience and style of play will add depth and stability, while allowing the Raiders to focus on building around him. With smart draft decisions ahead, it's an exciting time for the team. The upcoming game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets is a huge one, with both teams vying for better positioning. The Lakers will face some challenges as it's a back-to-back game, but I believe Luka Doncic is going to have another big performance. He scored 45 points in his last game, and I think he'll be able to hit at least 32.5 points in this game. The Lakers are coming off a dominant win over the Nuggets just 2 weeks ago, and it was their defense on Nikola Jokic that stood out. Jokic was limited to just 12 or 13 points, and the Lakers shut him down with their aggressive approach, including Rui Hachimura's blitz against him. Despite having several key players out, like Jackson Hayes, Rui Hachimura, and LeBron James, the Lakers still have a chance to make an impact. Anthony Davis is likely to have a monster day. I'm predicting he'll finish with 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. I'm taking the higher on his combined points, rebounds, and assists, set at 50.5, as he'll be motivated to perform, especially after the Lakers' previous loss to the Nuggets. With the team fighting for the second seed in the West, I expect Davis to be in full force. I'm also making a baseball pick for something a bit different. Nick Pivetta, a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, is likely to rack up at least 5 strikeouts in his next game. He's averaging about 6 strikeouts per game, and I'd be surprised if he didn't hit this target. The entry for this pick is $15, with a payout of $109. If you haven't already, I recommend checking out Underdog Fantasy for more picks. It's a great platform, and by using my link, you'll be supporting the channel and the sponsor. Shifting gears a bit, there's been some interesting news involving former Raiders players. Gardner Minshew, the quarterback, has signed a 1-year contract with the Kansas City Chiefs, which caught me off guard. I didn't expect the Chiefs to be the team to pick him up, especially after the Raiders released him due to a failed physical. Minshew wasn't healthy at the time, which affected his availability for a while, but the Chiefs moved quickly to sign him, and I've seen Chiefs fans expressing excitement about adding him to their roster as the backup quarterback. It makes sense when you think about it. Patrick Mahomes is a phenomenal quarterback, but Andy Reid is arguably an even better offensive play designer. Minshew, who is about 2 years younger than Mahomes, has a great opportunity to learn and develop under Reid's coaching. This could help revive his career, much like we saw with Sam Darnold, who found success after working with Kyle Shanahan and then Kevin O'Connell. Similarly, players like Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith have found success under strong offensive coordinators. I hope Minshew finds success with the Chiefs, although not at the Raiders' expense. But I believe this opportunity could really help him grow as a quarterback. It would also show how important a great offensive coordinator is. If Minshew performs well with Reid, it would further highlight how exceptional Andy Reid's coaching is and how much of an impact he has on the quarterbacks who play under him. It's been interesting to see the decisions the Raiders have made, especially regarding some of their defensive positions. The team recently lost defensive end Cleon Chasen, which has sparked some discussion among fans. Some have questioned whether the Raiders should have kept him or replaced him with another player. In the offseason, the Raiders had a similar dilemma with Malcolm Kuntz. With Kuntz potentially leaving, the question remains whether the team should focus on bringing in a replacement or if they should still look to add another defensive end, especially given their high draft picks. At pick 6, there will likely be several talented players available, including a few defensive ends worth considering. Even though the Raiders have Tyree Wilson on their roster, he hasn't really shown much yet. His style is power-based, which doesn't always translate well to the NFL. The team faces a tough decision on how to approach the defensive end position moving forward. While some fans might be disappointed that Chasen was signed by the Patriots for $5 million, it's important to recognize that the Raiders are making moves that allow them flexibility. The Raiders' decision to sign Malcolm Kuntz to a 1-year deal is a good move from a financial perspective. At just $1.2 million, it's a low-risk contract, and it gives Kuntz a chance to prove himself. However, this could also be a stopgap measure. Given the nature of the NFL, it's likely that Kuntz won't be around long-term, especially since he's on a 1-year deal, and the team is still betting on Wilson's development. If Wilson doesn't develop as expected, it's possible that the Raiders could look to trade him or bring in other players to compete at the position. Some have suggested offering Chasen a contract to stay with the Raiders, perhaps a 3-year deal worth $7 million. However, Chasen himself might have made a smart decision by leaving. He's betting on himself by joining the Patriots. In New England, he'll likely have a chance to be a key contributor, and if he has a strong season, say with 7 sacks and a significant number of quarterback hits and pressures, he could see a big payday next year, possibly earning $15 million or more. By betting on himself, Chasen could land a more lucrative contract in the future. From Chasen's perspective, the Raiders may not have been the best option for him. With Max Crosby and Kunze ahead of him on the depth chart, along with the addition of Tyree Wilson, it would have been difficult for Chasen to get the playing time he needed to showcase his talents. By signing with the Patriots, he's given himself the chance to prove he's worthy of a big contract next season. The Raiders will now need to consider their long-term defensive end strategy. While they have Max Crosby and Christian Barmore already under contract, the team will need to make sure they have the right pieces in place to continue building a strong defensive line. This year's draft could be pivotal for the team's future in this regard. It'll be interesting to see how the Raiders move forward and whether they will make a bold move to secure the position for the long run. The Raiders' defensive line situation is still very much in the air, especially with the potential development of Tyree Wilson and the question of who will ultimately be the long-term partner for Max Crosby. The current scenario has Malcolm Kuntz as the starter opposite Crosby, but the team still has to plan for the future, which could see Tyree Wilson stepping up or even drafting another defensive end. The concern is that if the Raiders do draft another defensive end this year, it might not offer great value. Given the depth at the position, a draft pick could be better used elsewhere. Wilson is in the 3rd year of his rookie contract and still has 2 more years left, with the potential to exercise the 5th-year option. If Wilson doesn't perform this year, the Raiders may need to reconsider his future with the team. It could be a make-or-break year for Wilson to prove he can be a reliable edge rusher opposite Crosby. The best approach for the Raiders would likely be to let Wilson start and give him every opportunity to develop, with Kunze easing in for the first few weeks and potentially taking over if Wilson doesn't perform. On the flip side, while Wilson is given a chance, the Raiders have already seen the success of players like Cleon Chasen, who revived his career with the team. After being drafted by the Jaguars and later cut, Chasen ended up being a solid contributor to the Raiders, which led to a $5 million contract with the Patriots. This is a testament to his resilience and ability to find success after setbacks, so it's great to see him getting another opportunity to prove himself with New England. Looking at the bigger picture, the Raiders' offseason hasn't been as active as many would have hoped. However, there's a silver lining in the team's cautious approach. The organization has been deliberate about not overcommitting to big-name players or large contracts. Rather than spending big on players who may not be worth it long-term, the Raiders have been more strategic in their moves. For instance, they didn't go all in on Aaron Banks or sign someone to a huge deal that could have hampered the team's future cap space. As far as potential targets like Cooper Kupp or Keenan Allen go, it's clear the Raiders are playing it smart by not overpaying for established talent who are demanding top dollar. If the team is only willing to offer 10 to 12 million when these players want 15 to 20 million, that's a smart move. The long-term impact of contracts is something that has to be considered, and it's clear the Raiders are trying to manage their finances wisely, especially with the draft being the true key to building a championship team. Overall, the cautious, calculated approach by the Raiders' front office seems to be the right one. John Spytek and the Raiders are not making rash moves, but instead focusing on making the most of their draft picks and managing contracts with a long-term view. If the Raiders continue to build through the draft while being prudent with their free agent acquisitions, they'll be in a much stronger position for the future.